Everyone, so I thought I'd have a go today at some daffodils. With spring is coming, blowing in the wind within a landscape, so it would make a nice Easter scene as well. This is my super easy beginners tutorial section, so I'll quickly go through what I've got. This is Saunders Waterford paper. It's rough. It was a 1/4 imperial sheet which I've quartered, and so it makes it about 5 by 7 inches. I have got a round number 10, a round number 6 and a number 2 rigger, a pencil, I'm going to show you a little bit of drawing, a Cotman palette which I'm using for all of this section, and I'll show you how to use the colours that I've got, and then you can use your colours in the same way. You've got my water pot here as well. So I'm going to pop in a couple of daffodils. So to do this, I'm going to do a couple of triangles. So I've got a triangle that way, a triangle this way, and then I'm going to put my centre within here. So this is a trumpet centre, and I'm going to do it slightly sideways. Then I can use the points of those triangles which make a star to bring in the petals of the daffodil. And there we go, we've got one daffodil. Things work better in odds, so I'm going to carry on and I'm going to do 3. So if I pop another one in here, these are overlapping, they can overlap. You can see I'm doing a slightly different angle. I'm going to bring the centre a little bit more this way. So I'm actually not even going to see the inside of that one because it's going to be behind. You bring it all the way to the trumpet. So these side, there is a good way of you getting the circular perspective, because this side is going to be bigger because it's closer to you. And then I've got a bit of a stem coming here. And then this next one, I'm going to pop here. So I've got that triangle there, that triangle there. Centre's going to come here, and this one's falling down a little bit. So there's my little bit of a trumpet, and then follow that round to get those petals. And bring a stem down here, and then we want a few leaves. I'm going to have quite a low field, so it's quite nice to have the yellow of the daffodils against a lovely blue sky. We're going spring today, definitely spring. And then I'm going to pop in a few distant trees. Might even have a little church in here, keeping it Easter themed, just in the background. So there's a little bit of a spire. We'll have a little church in there. Okay, so I'm going to come straight onto the sky, picking up my round number 10. I'm going to wet the sky. I'm going to come around the daffodils because I want to keep those dry. I'm not bothered about coming around the church. I can come over that one. Just the daffodils I want to keep dry. So I've got a nice sheen to the paper, and then I'm dipping into water. I'm going to come into my cerulean blue, straight in, nice blue the spring sky. I'm doing little smiles in the sky, still with my round number 10. I'm loading up with a bit more water. Don't want it to be too strong. Going to get towards the edges of the daffodils. Use the point of the brush. That should get you into those edges. Remember, what you're doing now will form the petal of the daffodil, so it's quite nice to spend some time being as precise as you can coming round, because that's going to give you a nice edge on that light yellow petal. Just concentrating on getting in to make sure that I've got a really nice edge. A little bit within there. I'm just going to take a stronger bit now, so I'm just going to mix the brush within the pan. We're going to get a stronger variation coming through, so we've got a bit more strength in some of this. Mix that one out. I'm going to drop down now to a number 6, and we're going to get some nice soft trees in the background. So this here is a sap green. I'm just going to activate that up, and then you can see here on the palette, this is where I've had this. Sap green is very fresh, it's great for daffodils, it's great for tulips. However, when it's in the distance, you want it to be a bit more natural. So I'm going to take in some brown. So I have got burnt umber. That's coming in there. And then with my round number 6, I'm going to come on and just create some really nice soft trees. Keeping my brush upwards. Nice thick paint, doesn't go too far. A variety of heights. You can take a little bit of the burnt umber in by itself. Add some dark towards the bottom. It's always good for a contrast. And that's working really nicely. I've got a tiny dry bit. I'm just going to rinse my brush off, taking a little bit more paint. I'm dabbing it off because I don't want it to watermark. I'm just going to take a little bit in there. You probably couldn't even see that on the camera. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to come on to this bottom section, avoiding the daffodil flowers but not the stems. Get a nice bit of water on here. So this is with my round number 10 again, and I'm going to use some lemon yellow, which doesn't get much action in my palette unless it's spring. What's really nice is you've got a really nice contrast against the cool of the field in front and the warmth of the trees behind. Contrast works really well. So just keep activating my lemon yellow. I've got that really nice spring fresh yellow. And then I'm going to dip into a little bit of sap green, still with my round number 10, and bring some of that in into the foreground. You can see that I'm doing horizontal strokes. I want this to have a feeling of flatness and calmness against the daffodils blowing. Okay, I want a little bit of shadow in here. So if I drop down to my number 6, And then I'm going to use some of this more natural green. I'm just going to bring a few little bits of shadow through. I'm just trying to eliminate that very white line at the top. And this is a little bit of ultramarine blue. I'm going to bring this in upward strokes. Just into that foreground there. Rinse my brush off, dab it off on the kitchen towel. I'm going to come into the lemon yellow and do the same. If your yellows get mucky, it's fine, you can just wipe them off after. This is just giving a nice bit of foreground interest. Then I'm going to do the same this side with the lemon yellow, where those leaves are, just so I'm starting to build those up. I'm going to take in a little bit of the cerulean blue because that's a cooler blue. I'm just going to start to build up a little bit of a base in the wet in wet there. Okay, so if I get a nice dark colour now, so I'm going to use a little bit of my ultramarine. I've got a little bit of palette here where I've popped this in before. And a little bit of my burnt umber. I'm going to make a darker grey. A blue and a brown will always make a nice grey. And then I can come on and just do this church. It can be silhouetted in the distance. So I'm using my round number 6. It's got a good point, so it is quite easy. If you struggle, then you could go to something like a number 2. It's not always easy if you haven't got a good point on a brush. If I rinse that off, then dab it off, and what I'm going to do is just dampen this edge here. So it's not too wet, just so that that is softening into the trees. Then I'm also going to take out a little bit of light, just so it's not just totally flat. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to start to come into these little daffodils now. So this is a warm yellow, cadmium yellow, and I'm using a round number 6. So I'm going to come on to the side of the trumpet first. So this is straight on to dry. Just got to make sure you've got enough colour that you can work that just for about 30 seconds. This is cadmium red that I'm using. If you didn't have cadmium red, you could use a rose, you could use alizarin. It's just to give a little bit of warmth on this edge. So this is still damp. The colour's nice and thick, so it's staying put, and I'm running it on both edges, so the top and the bottom. Rinsing my brush off, drying it off on the kitchen towel, and then I'm just going to pull bits of that colour back and forth. So what I want is a variety that looks like it's shadowed a little bit. That's working perfectly. I'm going to come into my sap green. Just while they're drying and settling, I'm going to come into the stems. So this again is on to dry. Taking the sap green on, running down. If I take a dip into the ultramarine, I'm going to give one side a little bit of shadow. So this is again, whilst it's still damp, just running on that right hand edge, and that's giving them a little bit of shadow. Rinse my brush off. I'm going to go back into the sap green. I'm just going to do a few leaves on dry. So I don't want you to eliminate all of the softness that we've done in the background by painting over those again. So we're just adding a few extra leaves. You want them to be fairly fluid, not soaking wet, but fairly fluid, that they go on without being too scratchy. And again, we're going to take a little bit of the ultramarine blue, just run through in places to create a bit of shadow. What should happen is they're still wet enough as it should run and soften in naturally. But it's not the end of the world if you've got a hard shadow here and there anyway. It will still work. You can manipulate it a little bit. So this is just taking a damp brush. I've just dabbed it off on the kitchen towel and spread it up and down. So don't feel that you're stuck with what's there. You can manipulate a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of that sap green again. Just stroke through, just in that grassy area. I'm going to swap down to my rigger, so I get thinner grasses now. So this is back into the sap green. Resting on my little finger, just doing a few flicks. I'm going to come over a bit further. I want them to connect together. Daffodils are usually within the grasses, not patched without, so we're just going to bring in a few little bits of grasses through here as well. It's just going to give it a nice balance to that foreground. Variety of heights, variety of angles. We're not doing freshly mown grass. And this is a little bit of the ultramarine just in this corner because it was a bit darker. There we go. I'll just check my round number 6 is clean. Okay, so we're going to start to come onto these petals now. I'm taking a little bit of water on. You don't want too much. We're going to use the lemon yellow to fill these in. Now I have got quite strong pencil marks here. You can rub them out before you start. I tend to leave it fairly strong so you can see it. So I've just cleaned off my lemon yellow. I'm just going to dab in to the ones where I've added the water. So you can see that I'm leaving a petal in between because I want that to dry first before I come on to do the next petal. That gives us a nice edge. Do 3 on this one. So that little bit of water is just enabling the paint to flow nicely. And you want that contrast between the warm yellow in the centre and the cooler yellow of the lemon yellow on the outside. Pop that one in. Okay, I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry, so I can come in now and do the rest of these petals. I'm just dampening them first, not too much water. I'm taking a little bit off there. That's just going to enable it to flow. And the lemon yellow is a really nice, delicate colour. Got to be careful you don't obliterate it. What I want to do is take a little bit of shadow in. I haven't done it on every one, but I am going to do it on the ones that I've just wet now. This is a tiny bit of the sap green. So by alternating the petals, you can get this little bit of shadow. And it's just enough, so I'm just taking it into those inside edges. It's just giving you that little bit of shadow. And then I'm also going to take a tiny bit of cerulean blue. So this is my round number 6. What I really like to do is just take a little bit of that cerulean blue just down the pencil lines. There's just something about it giving it a bit of vibrancy that I really like against the orange. And I've done this for years and years with daffodils. So on those ones where you just pop that little bit of green, you're just going to put those little cerulean blue lines. Okay, I'll dry that one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. I'm going to just activate up a bit of this cadmium red. So this is going to come just on this edge of each of those. We haven't really got one on the other one. Take that little bit off, so that's with a damp brush. Then I'm going to bring in a little bit of the yellow. I'm trying to leave a tiny bit of white in the centre. So I think that works really nicely as a highlight. So they're a bit more red within the centre and less of the yellow because you've started the opposite way round. Okay, and then what I've got as well is a fine liner pen. You can try and draw a little cross on top of this church, but sometimes it's better just to find a pen or a pencil and you can do a few little bits like this. So I'm just going to pop in the extra bit of detail on this church so that I've got a spire that's got shadow on one side. I've got a bit more of a roof. Can have a little window in there, just a hint of something. It needs a little bit more of something, so there's just a hint. It also helps you neaten up your lines. You could even do it with a biro. It would work with a biro as well. Okay, so there we go. So that's a nice simple daffodil picture, perfect for Easter coming up. Giving you a go at how to draw daffodils and how to do a little church. If you've enjoyed it, please do like, subscribe and share. I'll pop you another video here and a playlist here, and I'll see you next time.